You know, every single industry right now is trying to find a way to make their business sustainable. Yet pro wrestling, yet these fans and these promoters are falling into, even people who are my friends are getting duped into this thing of believing that to run a successful company, 5-star match, 5-star match, 5-star match. It doesn't work that way. It's not sustainable. Who was the most successful promoter in this country of running 5-star matches? Me. And I'm telling you now, it's not sustainable. And that's the issue. You know, what's happening is the lunatics are running the asylum. As a promoter and as a performer, it's your job to give the audience what you know they need, not what they think they want. Because of course you're going to go 5-star match, 5-star match, I want a 5-star match. But then what happens is the fans become the bookers. They go, no, I'm not coming because it wasn't a 5-star match. So then all your draw is based on the quality of that match. Now, what pressure does that put the performers under? It doesn't help them. Do you think these performers, so what you're saying is you want them to come to your show and deliver a 5-star match, you know, once every month, once every other month or whatever, right? That's not going to help them get signed with a company like WWE because that's not what WWE are looking for. They want guys who can tell stories, still have great matches, but know when to have a great match, know when to save that dive, know when to save that moonsault. And that's what we're doing. And our guys are learning a different skill set, a skill set that has never happened here in the UK. And that's why that match was different, because we went out there and we told a gripping story. We believed it was real. I'm telling you right now, we were in, I mean, the shots were hard. You know, we were believing it. We were there. We were doing what WWE has done for a long, long time because we've never had anyone to teach us that style. And look at Robbie Brookside. Look at Robbie Brookside, reduced to tears because that was Robbie saying, I can do this. That was us saying to America, we're late in the game, right? But we can do your shit just as good as you can do your shit, but without the budget. But you can't do our shit. You can't do our shit. You know, I defy John Cena to get in the ring with Leroy Kincaid. I know, do it. He'll do your stuff, your rapping, right? He'll do he'll do your main event selling and all that kind of stuff. He'll be just as popular with the ladies, okay? And he can wrestle. There's not a knock on John Cena. I think he comes across as a really pleasant person. I'm just giving their guy and our guy, right? We are there now. We're there. We're about, the sleeping giant has awoken. You know, we've been inducing it. We've been bringing it forward with the uproar song and all the mantras and all the things. But we're here now. And that match and that show, I think it's wrong just to talk about that match. I think the entire show, top to bottom, even the matches that I thought weren't going to be very good. You know, we have one student on that show, 16, 17, you know, the BWC exhibition match. That right there that's a shot right to everybody to say, this is the quality of our students. We've got 17 schools in the BWC chain, over 400 students, and they're not the best ones. They're some of the best ones at that school, but you know, the industry is awakening, and there's big changes going on. And the Art of War was really just the message to the wrestling world.
I want to come back to the BWC in a minute, but while we're on the subject of the Art of War, if I can just go briefly again back to that match, and particularly your role in it. Now, I know a year ago when the new FWA was launched, you made a vow that you wouldn't combine the roles of being the head of product content involved creatively in the storylines and whatnot with being an in-ring performer for reasons that are well documented through wrestling history, with sort of bookers putting themselves over and that kind of thing. Now, obviously, that vow was broken, if you like, at the Art of War when you ended up being the fourth man on the Resistance team. Can you explain to us how that came around?
Yeah, I mean, you might want to talk to Tony Simpson. Tony, who the situation is, Tony's always been more of a fan of my work than I've been a fan of my work. That's the truth. Before we run the FWA, when his import no-showed him at IPW UK, he spent an hour on the phone trying to work out who the replacement should be with me. What I found out later was he wasn't actually trying to find out who the replacement was. He was trying to talk me into coming back as the replacement, you know. But yeah, we have an agreement, and you know, here's the situation. We find out Doug's not going to be there. I won't say who we got asked as replacements because then that might give away the game later on. But we went through every single suitable replacement who had a reason for being there, a reason to defend the FWA, who could work the main event style and had some sort of history with the people involved, and that we knew would go all out. You know, I'm telling you now, I went more all out than Doug would have gone. I did a springboard somersault dive, and, you know, landed hard. You know? You know, but that's not a knock on Doug. That's just saying I know, like, you know, when we needed a heel to wrestle Raven in International Showdown, who was going to have a match with Raven that involved them Raven not really bumping, so it means the other person's got to have this really good brawl and take big bumps because Raven ain't going to do it. It came down to Jeff Jarrett or me. Jarrett would have jumped off the balcony, not even for the $10,000 that I got quoted. I did, and I didn't take a wage. Right? So the difference is that it was desperate times, desperate measures. I didn't want to do it. You know, at first I was so out of it. Well, you know, I was so out of it that day. Had no chance. That's probably why the match was so believable, because I was so busy running everything. I booked the show. You know, I do a lot of stuff on show days. And I was saying, I can't do this again. I cannot do this again. It's just too much. I don't know how I did it in my early 20s. But I'm glad it went that way. I can look back at that and put it in my body of work, which recently I'm really proud of. You know, and I think the reason I'm really proud of is because I'm not wrestling 5 days a week. It's the whole thing about, oh, you know, not a wrestler if you don't wrestle 5 days a week. Listen, there comes a point where I believe it is counterproductive to do too many matches. I believe once you learn it, once you pass that point of learning and you're doing it over and over and over again, you start to shortchange the audience. You start to shortchange yourself. You save yourself. I go all out. You know, you watch my last 2 performances, the Art of War match and the Nathan Cruz match, and tell me they're not 2 of the best performances this year. That's not me blowing my own horn. That's saying that I've got the physical ability to do it now. I've got the mental know-how, but also I'm not wrestling as much as the other guys. So I can get my back whipped to the point of bleeding and leaving marks for a week, and I don't have to wrestle again for a few weeks. You know, so that's why that happened. I felt, in hindsight, it was the right decision. But I'll be honest with you, I was terrified going into it. I respect these guys enormously. You know, you've got guys like Charles Samuels, who thinks, you know, he thinks that I don't consider him. He said this to me. He thinks I don't consider him, you know, a top, you know, a proper wrestler, because he, you know, I was one of the first wrestlers whose autograph he asked for. But I look at these guys and I'm like, man, these guys are tremendous. You know, so it wasn't intentional, but I'm glad it turned out that way.
So I guess a year into the new FWA, it's fair to say you're fairly pleased with the direction, you know, in terms of the in-ring product. And
yeah, I think we're there. I think the Art of War, we're there. You know, the whole point. Well, you know again, because you're privy to a lot of inside information. But we had a plan, and that plan was to slowly but surely get the characters over, get the stories over. Don't pull the trigger, if people have said, on what we're doing. Get to that point. Uproar was the first good show we'd done, wasn't great. Art of War is the first FWA show. From this point forward, that's how it's going to be. The formula's been understood. The guys get it. They treat it with the importance we wanted them to now. The guys who are at Expo were like, this is going, this was going somewhere. They felt it. So
that was the weekend when I felt it. I mean,
it's the weekend when we all felt it. Yeah.
60,000 fans passing through. Yeah. People spontaneously cheering, you know, FWA when they saw our stuff, and they weren't even wrestling fans.
Let me tell you, why did we feel it? Because for that weekend, we were treated, we didn't get VIP treatment, but we were treated with respect. We were treated like stars. We were in a decent venue. We were part of something special. We were able to show and represent wrestling and in its truest, purest form. And we all felt that we were doing something special. Why? Because we were doing what we were meant to be doing. We were doing something that makes us happy. Okay? A lot of other shows are a pain in the arse. You're like, oh God, because it just reminds you how far from the promised land we are. And when you have a weekend like that, it makes you realise, man, this isn't so unachievable. And I always say this, and what's my inspiration? My inspiration is to put these guys on full-time salaries. Why? Because I've managed to live a lifestyle at one point in my life, which was considered unheard of for a British wrestler. And the reason it's considered unheard of is because I couldn't afford to live that lifestyle. But I've never seen money as anything more than a promissory note, an exchange of energy, a scam, which is why that scam is collapsing, okay? But I understand having a good time, and I understand a cause. A cause is more important to me than a possession, you know? And we understood on that weekend, this is what it could be like every single weekend, every single day, once a month, whatever, just to feel that. Art of War, take us to a five-a-side football pitch, recreate the same feeling, but without the 60,000 people or the superstar appeal that we had. That proves now that we don't have to have that smoke and mirrors for the guys to believe. The guys believe. They understand, you know, maybe 90% of our roster, maybe there's 10% that still don't, but they're seeing what's happening. And that's why we're about to move forward. But forget about just our roster. It's the students. It's the wrestlers in other companies who are on adrenaline. Do you know how many wrestlers were on that between the 2 shows? 58 wrestlers, my friend. They've all got that awesome quality footage, professional photos, and they've all been in that kind of environment. That's going to create change like we've never seen before.
This is the resistance, and we need your help.